Smart Shorties with Mr. Craig. Hi guys and gals, Mr. Craig here again for an Art Smart Shorty with Mr. Craig. I represent the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay, specifically the Youth Arts Initiative, and I would love to spend more time with you guys making comic books. Yes, we should be making our comic books. Would you shut up about that already, Mr. Craig? No, I will not shut up about that. That's something that I really want us to see us doing, right, Lenny? You're darn right. But we're also doing some quick art lessons to kind of sharpen your skills, to give you guys a little bit more finesse. We want to see you not be hulks with the pencil. Boom, Hulk make line. We want to see you be ninjas with your pencil. And use it with some finesse. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is continuing on the elements of design. We talked a little bit about line and shape, and now I want to talk to you guys about form and value. Okay, so we're going to give some value changes. Today we're going to create a value scale. What I want you to do is with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, gosh, we're using the same size paper a lot, aren't we? Yeah, you see the pattern? So hopefully these are things that you guys can get. And if you don't have this size piece of paper, that's fine, get something else. But I want you kind of to make a long, thin fold here to break it up into 3 parts. Okay, so roughly we're making it 3 parts, and this is just a simple way of you finding a line without having to use a ruler. So right now I've got this line going across here like this, and a line going across here like this. So now I've found that really easily. And the next thing you can do is, let's fold it in half again this way, a long thin way, like that. And then let's fold it again like that. Let's see if we can do it one more fold. That would be more than enough. Okay, so we've folded it now 3 times that way, long and thin, to give us all these little boxes across the middle. All these little boxes across the middle. And I've got 1 box there, I've got another 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 box there, and I've got another box there, and I've got another box there. And now we're going to create a shading scale that goes from 0 tone, like a white, pure white, so a 0 all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 7, and 7 is going to be our black. All right, so if you want to, and if you have a marker or something of that nature, a lot of times when I'm using a marker, people, I will take a second sheet of paper underneath it so that when it bleeds through, it doesn't get onto the table underneath it. How many of you guys have ever drawn on a table with a marker and all of a sudden it's like, oops, it bled through? Raise your hand, be honest. I did it too. I did it too. I did it. I admit it. I admit it. I did it. I had did it. I did it. Did it. Okay, so we're going to create a shading scale from a 0 to a 7. All right. Before I do that, I want to kind of make sure my pencil's sharpened. And I like to use a colored pencil. More so than just your straightforward number 2 pencil. Colored pencil gives me a little bit more control over the tint and tones that I want to try to get. You might find it differently, okay? So, and I also think that I can keep a colored pencil cleaner, but it's more difficult to erase, absolutely. I just try not to erase. I try to work on things and build them up to certain tones. Now the very first tone is done for us because it's a white. Oh yes, thank you very much. Thank you for doing it for me. The number 1 tone is we want to try to go in here and barely kiss the paper with the pencil. So we're drawing super light across there, and with this large of a space, I might have made that space a little bit too large, but it is actually super hard to get it even, smooth. So that's going to be probably as close to the first tone as I'm going to get right there. The second tone is going 1 step downward. It's like we're going from upstairs in the house down to the basement, just like this. So like there's a step, boink, 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 all the way down into a basement, all the way down. So now I'm going to go to my number 2 tone, and I'm going to add onto that one. I can be a little bit more, put a little bit more pressure on it, or I can try to keep the same amount of pressure and build it up. Oftentimes you want to build up your tones as you're going. Okay, that seems to be the best. And when I look at it, you want to try to fill in some of the areas where you missed, so that it's trying to get it as smooth as possible. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And that one there is definitely a tone darker than the number 1. So we go from 0 to 1 to 2. And the next one that we go to is a number 3, and we're still kind of working with light tones, building it up, being a ninja, trying to make your tones uber light as you're going. And you guys can take more time on this too than I'm taking. There's not a problem with that. This is an art quickie, not an art longie, so I want you guys to see this. And I would actually, if I were doing this for realsies, for something that I was going to be hanging on a refrigerator or in an art museum, I would take more time on this, but this is ultimately a practice guide. The next one, number 4, is going to be a step darker than number 3. So we're, like I said, we're going deeper into the down to the basement steps, and it's getting darker and darker with each step. Ooh, and creepier and creepier. So we're going to build up that tone just a little bit more. And right now, when I look at it, I don't see too much of a difference in the tone. So I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing that by going over it again. But now with maybe just a tiny bit more pressure. And now it's easier. It's easier for me to get this as a smooth tone as well, because the super light tones are the trickiest. Absolutely. It's easy for us to go in there and muscle on all this extra tone, but to get those light ones, oh, they're hard. But what happens if I made it too dark? What if I made it too dark and it's obvious to me? There's another tool that you can use to lighten things up, and it's called an eraser. An eraser, and that is oftentimes something that you use in order to kind of get your tones to work. Now here is an obvious shade change, maybe even too much of one. Might have made that one too dark. We'll see. So I'm moving on to number 5. And again, this is ultimately a great practice for you to sharpen your skills. That's you never really would see a grading scale in an art museum or anything like that, because they're boring. And they're also not that exciting to make, but they're good practice. They're absolutely good practice for us to get our shading skills started and figured out, and really put an understanding. It shows me that a student understands the difference between the dark and light values. So we're making that change from the lightest to the darkest, or the darkest to the lightest, whichever way you want to go. And now we can see that got a much darker tone. And I think I'm on a fairly good path here, as I'm going doot 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 as it goes down. And let's go into our 6, which is our darkest. And now also, as your pencil kind of loses its point, it gets a broader, flatter surface too. And if you hold your hand in a certain way, you can utilize that to your benefit. Getting a huge flat surface on your pencil makes some of those lighter tones easier to get, because you're covering more surface with the tone. And you can do that with a little bit more control when it's a larger, flatter surface than when it's a point. You have to be really, really good with the pencils in order to kind of keep that consistent and smooth. And also, I like to, use the pencils in the direction that works with my arm. So I'm kind of using my arm and my elbows to kind of get all these different tones. And this one here I want to build up, because this one's almost black. So I can go the opposite way and build another layer of tone on there, so that it gives us this almost black feel. Almost pure black there. And I think I'm pretty close to being done, although I could always go back in here, and if I have some extra time, That's always a factor. I'm going to go in here over the top of some of my, some of the black, and then when I do that, you know what I see? I see a massive difference between my number 6 and my number 7. So I could actually go in here, darken this one, trying to look at which one of these. These are actually pretty close, but let's darken our number 6 a little bit. Go back in here, darken my number 6. Darken my number 5 just a little bit so that it's still a little bit lighter than my number 6, number 5. Go back in, darken my number 6 again. Build it up, using that flat spot on the pencil. Building it up with layers. I'm not really pushing down hard, but I am using a little bit of pressure. More pressure now than what I did with my beginning numbers over on the opposite side. And, okay, so now I've got, now my 4 can get a little bit darker. 4 just a little bit darker, not too much. Don't want to get crazy. I'm already too crazy. Don't want to get any crazier. And I'm going to go to my number 3 and just darken that just a tiny bit. Darken that a little bit. And then my number 2 just a tiny bit. And you know what? I'm even going to go into my number 1 with just the tiniest bit to smooth it out. This will actually make my tones a little bit better as I'm going. And now, dang, Mr. Craig, you did a good job. This is my value scale. And it goes from 0 to 7. You could break them up into many different things. These are the different steps that we're going to use in creating some value in some future shapes. So please practice these value scales. Once you know how to do them one way, you can actually add color over the top of them and go in different directions too, because you can actually get values within color. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for checking out my Art Smart Shorty with Mr. Craig. I represent the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay, and I want to see you continue to sharpen your art skills and your creative skills, and stay mentally healthy and physically healthy, and stay creative. See you guys soon.